welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Journals right here on Black Mass Paranormal. So, in this video, we are going to talk about one of the most infamous cryptid cases that has ever occurred, and it happened in 1988. In Lee County, South Carolina, there was a young man named Christopher Davis that was driving home one night early in the morning. As Chris was heading through the scape or swamp area, he unfortunately got a flat tire. Chris exits his vehicle and begins working on changing the tire. Now, in 1988, you got to remember that AAA wasn't exactly something that you could just call up, stay in your car the whole time, and you'd be good to go. You actually had to get out of your vehicle and do this work yourself. So, Chris had just eventually gotten... Chris had just gotten his tire that was previously slashed back on to the vehicle. When he looks up, just past his vehicle, he sees red eyes staring back at him. Now, Chris panics and he rushes to jump in the driver's seat of his car. He quickly closes the door, but as he's closing the door, he feels some resistance. This creature now has a hold of Chris's car door as he's trying to close it. Chris claims that this thing is trying to attack him, but he floors it, and he manages to get away with only some dents and scrapes on his vehicle. Chris rushes through Lee County in order to get to the sheriff's station. Now, at the sheriff's station, there's a man named Liston Truesdale. He's the acting sheriff at this particular time. Chris goes in, and he's in an absolute frantic panic. He is losing his mind trying to describe this 7 to 8 foot tall reptilian looking creature that only has 3 fingers, has crazy looking red eyes, that just attacked him in lake or swamp. Now, the sheriff, at first, this young man pulls in, he's in a panic. The sheriff kind of is like, man, I can't understand what you're trying to tell me. Can you calm down and please give me a better description? Chris wasn't really able to articulate what he saw that night, so the sheriff asked him to just draw it out for him. So Chris quickly grabs a piece of paper and a pencil and sketches out this reptilian-looking figure, in which he hands to the sheriff when the sheriff was pretty skeptical. Over the next several days and weeks, the sheriff would become a little bit less skeptical. Because at the time, people started calling in. They started calling in these sightings of this massive creature that's running around scape or swamp, causing all kinds of havoc to his residents. And then one day, a man named Frank Mitchell was flying his plane. As he was coming over Lee County in the scape or swamp area, he sees his landing area. Now, this isn't a typical runway. This is kind of like a backwoods sort of runway that doesn't have a tower or anybody actively managing the strip where he is going to land. Now, as Mitchell makes his rotations and begins to slow the plane down, on his approach, he sees some massive creature crossing his path. Frank said that as he approached the creature, it didn't really rush off at the sight of this airplane coming at him, but rather it just kind of turned and looked at him. In his description, loafed away. This interaction with the pilot, to me, is very intriguing, because typically with wildlife, when at the sound and sight of a plane, they oftentimes dart away from the area. They don't loaf out of the way. Frank described this creature as having some sort of strange gait to its walk, that it wasn't like it was walking like it was a bear or any other creature that he knew in the area, such as, pigs and deer and whatever else you find out in the backwoods of South Carolina. However, Frank was certain that this thing was totally out of the norm, that this creature was something that he had never seen before. And he was actually unaware at the time of Christopher Davis's run-in just days before. As word in town begins to spread of this creature that is causing some pretty serious scares at this point, there was a man named George Plier who was working on a fence area to keep his pigs and his goats in and preventing them from going into the swamp. Now, George said that him and several of his crew were working on installing this brand new fence when they decided to take lunch. George said he looks over, and behind this 36-inch tree, he sees what looks to be kind of like a human-shaped head. He said that its eyes, though, were glowing bright red, and that the rest of its body had some sort of reptilian-type feel to it. He didn't really know how to explain what he had just saw, but all he knows is that there was something watching him in that swamp. This is where we get to the point of the Rawson family. Now, the Rawson family had the most documented evidence of an encounter with the lizard man to date. The Rawsons were cat lovers. Dixie, she absolutely loved her cats. She made sure that they had a great home, they had plenty of blankets and plenty of food and a great place to live. Now, Dixie was some described as kind of like a cat lady, which is okay. I love animals. I'm not a cat person, but Dixie absolutely loved her cats. So she turns on the news and she gets word of this creature that is just bebopping around town, scaring the crap out of people. Immediately she thinks, oh no, I better go check on my cats. So she goes out of the house and around to her driveway, where the worst thing in her mind could have happened. She finds all of her cats' bedding and toys strung all over the yard and the driveway. She's absolutely terrified for the livelihood of her cats at this point, when her husband comes around from the other side and says, Dixie, you need to come look at this. So Dixie goes around to her Dodge van, where she is looking at just absolute destruction. The front of her van looks like a shark just went to town on this thing. It has holes in it. It's got like scrape marks. And something else that she notices that scares her even worse is that she finds blood. They immediately call the sheriff and report what had happened. So the sheriff and the forensic team comes out and takes samples of the bite marks and of the blood and any other type of evidence that they could find. So far, they were not able to determine exactly what caused this just mass destruction to her van. So the lizard man of Lake Ore Swamp is one of fascination, but a lot of people say that it's simply a tourist attraction, that they were trying to take advantage of cases like in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where the Mothman sightings occurred. Lee County, South Carolina is an amazing place. I personally don't feel like this was an attempt for wanted tourism. I don't think that that would benefit Lee County all that much. So in these cases, I always try to look at the environment itself, whether or not it could sustain some sort of creature like this. Now, in this case, it looks as though that the swamp area could sustain a very large creature for an extended period of time. The lizard man of Lake Ore Swamp is one that has fascinated me for years. And I am doing my best to try to get my channel to a point where in these situations, I can just get out there, go investigate, and have a great time. I've been through Lee County and it's amazing. I didn't really have an opportunity to do a whole lot of investigating at the time, but it is definitely a special place that I will be going to investigate that swamp. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Paranormal Journals. If you're new to the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and turn on notifications. That way you know I'm out here running my mouth or doing something crazy again. So this past weekend, I wasn't able to get an investigation video out, and I am so sorry. I have been doing my best and trying to crank out content as best I can. I also do not want to sacrifice my quality. Now, this investigation that I was working on in order to get out, it's a pretty special one, to say the least. I've got several cases in the works as it is. The haunting case that I am currently working on is a truly fascinating case. I was really surprised at the amount of evidence that I have been able to gather in such a short amount of time. This isn't a normal case. This isn't like your average. I watched Ghost Adventures a couple times, so I think my house is haunted. This is a case that has documented evidence of a paranormal happening inside this person's home. So I will be heading back to do a full nighttime investigation of this person's home in order to try to solve the case.